All right, what's going on, everyone? It's Z-Voms back here again. And I just got finished watching a really powerful podcast. And I actually was going to start today off talking about Robert Kiyosaki. But instead, I wanted to talk about the mind and how powerful it is. And I'm probably going to leave it on a quick note and then start talking about money, to be honest, because it's really actually pretty fast, in my opinion. But I wanted to come on here and just question a lot of people's actions and figure out why people do the things that they do, specifically towards their thoughts and their future. And I say that in question because a lot of people like to sit around and not do much, or they go to work and they're not really working towards anything of a higher goal or their future. They just kind of like do the same thing like 7 days a week, literally. And it seems kind of boring to me, and it may be boring to them. It may be amazing to them. I'm not really sure. That depends on person to person and what they like. But anyway, I wanted to just mention on a study that I was looking at, I think it was Dr. Bruce Lipton was talking about Psych-K, Psych space K, and how like you can basically transform your mind and hit the record button and program your mind very fast and become like super like have super intellectual abilities in regards to learning. And on one note, he was mentioning how people think that their thoughts are contained within inside the brain, but that couldn't be any farther from the truth. What actually happens is that when you observe something, or there's a sensory organ or something is observing, that then sends an electrical signal to your brain and around your body. Now, if you know anything about electricity, when there's electricity or electrons flowing through something, that creates a magnetic field around it. And if you know anything about how powerful your heart and your brain is in terms of electrical current, you would know that the field around you is much bigger than you think. So, if your thoughts are causing these electrical signals to happen with your neurons, they're then creating magnetic fields around you, which are then interacting with other magnetic fields, right? So, that's something really powerful that he was talking about how, it's kind of like a placebo, or I think he said nocebo or something like that effect. About like, oh, well, I haven't seen my buddy, I think in the example he used, John, in 10 years, right? I haven't seen my buddy John in 10 years. And then all of a sudden, a day later, John calls him, right? It's like, well, if you're only thinking about positive things about other people or wanting them to call you or something like that, that will reside with them because they'll get that signal subconsciously, right? And if just on that, you can then kind of ponder about how powerful the brain really is and like how much it really affects you on literally every minute, every second of, on terms of scale. Like it affects you a lot. And a lot of people are having these negative thoughts. And I believe that's where some of the anxiety comes from, is because he also mentioned that, well, your subconscious brain is working all the time, and you're only actually not working off of that 1 to 5% of the day, right? So that other 99 to 95% of the day, you're working off a program. And if you've been programmed by your parents or some significant other that you're, worthless or you're a failure, well, your program's going to be working on making you become a failure or a disappointment. On the contrary, if you believe and you always are thinking about the future and you think about the big successes that you're going to have, how you're going to get there and work out these plans and goals, well, your subconscious is then going to talk about and think about all the time about how to get there, right? So things start coming into your way, like you start meeting new people, you start discovering new projects, just things seem to fall into place, is how people usually refer to it. So I'm going to leave that topic there. Because that in itself should make you wonder and kind of question everything that you do every single day. Literally everything. Everything that you can think of. Your morning rituals, what you do during the day, how you take care of your weekends, how you take care of your physical health, your mental health, everything. Literally everything. And that was only 5 minutes of me talking. And I'm gonna see if I can link the video below that I want you guys to watch based on what I had. But I'll leave it in the description. But anyway, I also want to talk about what Robert Kiyosaki said, because he talks about programming and the way people think in regards to specifically financial situations. And what he was saying is that, well, if you don't know who Robert Kiyosaki is, he's the author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Basically, he has a rich dad who's an entrepreneur, has real estate, all that fun stuff, and then he has a poor dad who is actually practically successful. He has a PhD, works for the government, blah 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 blah, and he's like the poor dad because he has a poor mentality. And so Robert Kiyosaki mentioned about how schools don't teach you about money; they teach you to get a job, and they want you to work, and the only thing you need to know about money is that you're getting a paycheck practically, and you need to have a good enough paycheck to pay for your, living expenses. But the rich dad comes from a different perspective. The rich dad comes from, well, you work for free, and entrepreneurs figure out how to make the money. However, being an entrepreneur means that you understand money, and understanding money is is specifically how it works, right? So if I'm supplying work for somebody and working for free, I'm not technically working for free. They're giving me some type of value and I'm giving them value as well. So it's a value exchange. So just because it's not monetary in the forms of currency, there's definitely a transaction of values, right? That person might spread my name and returns, they bring me more clients to whatever I'm doing, or maybe I'm just helping them out and they realize that I'm a hard worker and then they want to actually offer me some sort of job or opportunity within the company, right? So it's about figuring out the money later, because if you know you have internal value, you're not worried about money because money will come with supplying your value. And so it's kind of a mentality. Literally, the mentality is the difference between rich and poor, right? So the rich dad goes on to explain about how money is like the game of Monopoly. Well, you have 4 greenhouses and 1 red hotel, as the example they gave. And you have to start off with 1 house, but on that same property, then, you'll get 2 houses, 3 houses, 4 houses. And once you have 4 houses, you upgrade to a hotel, and this takes a series of time. But insisting on active income and passive income, you will then soon reach that property of assets, right? So if you're taking on assets and a lot of assets and not liabilities and putting most of your money away to assets, that's not really saving, you're growing, right? Saving implies that you have a consistent rate that remains the same. But if you invest in an asset, there's an implication that value of that asset will normally increase, either just by inflation or otherwise. And it was crazy to me because the PhD guy, the poor dad, was talking about how, it doesn't matter what I do because the government's going to take care of me, right? They pay me, they give me my paycheck because I work for them. And I went to school, did all that stuff, but I don't really understand how money works. I just know that I get it, I got to pay my bills, and then I can spend whatever's left over. But the rich dad is thinking about wealth. He's thinking about how can he put this little bit of money that he has away into an asset that it can grow and work for him, right? So he, like, even if he was working for like a little bit of money, that little bit of money he'll put somewhere, such as like a stock or something like that will increase in value. And then every monetary value that he receives, he'll then put away into an asset that'll grow. So all the assets are growing at a certain rate, but if he keeps putting more and more into it, it becomes an exponential rate instead of like a normal savings account that increases linearly as you put into it, right? And that's all based off mentality, because you can create wealth and have a bunch of assets working a job in all reality, because that value that you receive in monetary value from a job can be interpreted into an asset. But what a good entrepreneur does is he exchanges his values for assets. Generally speaking, a lot of people will receive money, but that money isn't to them like cash, right? It's what they're going to use to support their assets or buy more assets. So I thought that was really interesting. And I'm going to see if I can find that video as well and link it below. But they both kind of connect to each other, because if you're always thinking about growing connecting together. I'm talking about the Psych K and Robert Kiyosaki's parents. They kind of connect together because the entrepreneur is always figuring out the next step and how he can work towards more assets, or worry about the money later and bring value now. And it's a mentality. It's his program. It's his subconscious working and working and working. Now, that poor dad, he is still successful. He has a PhD, right? So according to society, he's very successful. Went to school, has a good paying job. He actually works for the government, so he has full benefits. But he's the average poor mentality person. Oh, well, I can't afford that. Oh, well, we shouldn't do that because our budget doesn't allow it. And then the other dad, the rich dad, is always like, no, how can I afford it? How can I make it so I can afford it? Where can I put my value to increase the amount of return I get, right? ROI, return on investment. And that just baffles me how the programming in each of their minds set them on a certain course where both are technically successful in modern day society. However, one receives a higher monetary valuation than the other, supremely higher. Although they all have the same amount of time, they all have the same brain structure, right? Everything in that is the same except for how they think. So I thought that was really interesting. But yeah, so we're probably going to continue this on a lot of brain and psychology stuff. I'm going to look more into Psych K and that method by Dr. Bruce Lipton. Shout out to him. He's also on YouTube. I watched this video on video advice, in case anyone's wondering. And yeah, I mean, I'm currently trying to make sure that my recording in my program inside my brain is on par with what I want. And so far it is. Starting this podcast, persisting with it, it's just all part of the game. I'm going to do my best to play the game better and better every single day. So yeah, that's going to do it for me. Look forward to the future. Think bright. Explore all your possibilities. So I'm going to go ahead and drink some water. Maybe grab a cup of coffee and eat some lunch. It's been a pleasure. I'll talk to you guys soon. It's Z-Vamps. Later.